Hello and welcome to FTTR, I'm Hugh McQuaid, and today I'm coming straight at you with a graphic novel review. This graphic novel we are talking about is the comic book story of professional wrestling. Now, this is a graphic novel by Aubrey, I want to pronounce the name right, Sitterson, and Chris Moreno, and it is a graphic novel that details, the history of professional wrestling. It's pretty much what it says on the tin, the comic book story of professional wrestling. Now, I picked this up because I'm really fascinated by the history of professional wrestling, particularly to me, for some reason, sort of like the early 1900s, like the 1920s, that sort of era is really interesting to me. I don't know if it's just because I watched Torchwood from Out of the Rain too many times. Here's a picture of those carnival little freaks, but that's just always fascinated me. I love the look, I love the strongman aspect, I love the work shoot sort of thing of that particular era, the Hackenschmidts and the Gotches. That was the bit that really interested me the most, and that is covered in, let me show you, this beautiful little book right here. It's about just under 200 pages long, I would say, and it chronicles the entire history of professional wrestling. Now, it's not just WWE that is talked about in this book, and I know that's a common misconception that people have about wrestling, is that WWE is the end-all be-all of professional wrestling. No. This dates all the way back to, it details the very, very early sort of Greco-Roman stuff as well, in that early era of wrestling, and how it transformed into what it refers to in the book, the one true sport. Now, was this book any good? Did I learn anything from it? Did I get a better grasp of professional wrestling? The answer is definitely yes. This book is phenomenal. Now, first of all, the artwork, which you'll see above my face, is terrific. It's beautiful. It's this really sort of hyper-realistic style. Gives a lot of the flair to the various 1980s aspects that are really captured within this book. The vibrant colours, all the colourful characters. It's just gorgeous to look at, and I'm a big comic fan. I've got a lot of graphic novels over there, Batman, Justice League. I'm a DC mark, but it's just a really nice graphic novel. It's one of the prettiest graphic novels I've read in a long time, and it's really easy to follow, I think, is the main thing, because it's a sort of, it's obviously a non-fiction, tale. Non-fiction narrative, because it's documenting the history, and that can sometimes come across as boring. Biographies and stuff weren't really my thing in school, but it's really easy to follow. It's got a really nice flow, it's really witty, it's got some good jokes in there, a lot of insider jokes as well, if you are a wrestling fan, which you don't have to be for this book. I want to stress that. If you just want to learn more about professional wrestling, this is an easy read. You don't have to be a fan of it to understand what this book is getting across. Other than the, sensational imagery in the book, it captures a lot of different aspects of professional wrestling. A lot of different ones. Now, for me, probably the most interesting aspect for me was what's called I want to pronounce it right. I'm not good at pronouncing things. Puroresu, which is the Japanese style of wrestling. You've got King's Road, you've got Strong Style. If you don't know what New Japan is, it goes into detail about New Japan Pro Wrestling, All Japan Pro Wrestling, and how that evolved. That style, how it splintered off. You've got pillars of Japanese wrestling. It's so interesting, that aspect. I really, really love that stuff. I love learning about more British wrestling. I watched a good documentary. If you haven't seen the video, I'll pop it up somewhere. A really good documentary on BBC, which was about British wrestling, your big daddies and your giant haystacks. That era of World of Sport wrestling. But learning about it more and the evolution of the style, people coming across from different countries, it's just so interesting. It was really interesting. It was put into a format that, for me, who I don't deal in a lot of books, because I'm just not, it's very difficult to grasp my interest with a book. This held my interest. I really loved this. I want to see more. Excuse me, I've got a very dry throat, sorry about that. It's a really just fascinating look into professional wrestling, and I think the best thing about it is it's non-biased. It's not like a revision of history like the Ruthless Aggression documentary is, on the WWE network. It's just documenting the history in a palatable way. And that is a triumph, because there's a lot of stuff, and a lot of shady stuff, that I didn't think was going to be referenced in the book. So, for example, the Chris Benoit tragedy, that does get referenced in the book. The steroid trial gets referenced. Some of the stuff that I didn't think was going to be covered, because it's told in this medium of graphic novel, is covered. It's gripping. It's really good. It's a really interesting look at the world of professional wrestling, and I would highly recommend you check it out. I'd give it a 5 out of 5. I'd probably go back and read it again. It'd probably be my, like, you know, reference stuff. If I need to learn something about Japanese wrestling, I would go to this book. It is a triumph. I think it's been out for a few years now. I think it's about 3 years old, but I only recently just found about it. You know, it doesn't cover AEW. It covers sort of ends when Kenny Omega's in New Japan. That's sort of like the cut off point, which I think was about 2017, and it covers the women's revolution. But it's great. Believe me, it is great. I give this a 5 out of 5 rating. I would highly recommend you check it out as soon as you can, because it's great. It's so good. So thank you all ever so much for your support. Hit subscribe if you haven't. If you like FTTR, just hit subscribe. What are you doing? Thank you all ever so much for your support, and have a nice day.